For Hype Plus News, I'm Terrence Sims. In the 1950s, Detroit was a bustling town known for its innovation. Also called Motor City, Detroit in the 50s was the heart of the automotive industry and home to the world's leading car manufacturers. In 1955, a 25-year-old aspiring songwriter, Berry Gordy Jr., worked at a Lincoln Mercury plant. But Gordy had bigger dreams than factory work. And in 1957, he quit the assembly line to join singer and songwriter Smokey Robinson and start in what would become one of the highest earning record labels in the world, Motown Records. Arriving at the height of the civil rights movement, Motown was a black-owned, black-centered business that introduced mainstream America to an unmistakable style of R&B that would become known as the Motown sound. Motown had perfected the art of creating a hit record that had soul and mass appeal at the same time. Its formula is duplicated by record companies to this day. And according to Berry Gordy, that formula was created by the incorporating principles he learned working on the Lincoln Mercury assembly line. Some former Motown signees might argue that those aspirations of ownership for the company will ultimately become detrimental for the artists. The means by which Motown reached its success, including Gordy's assembly line method, possibly led to its singers, songwriters, and musicians becoming overworked and underpaid. Some might say that the company's incomparable influence and acclaim could not have been attained without some artistic theft. Often through copyright and control of artist development behind the scenes, there's always three sides to a story. Was Berry Gordy getting over on his artists? Join us as we investigate the legendary Motown records at its peak. Most Motown artists didn't write or produce their own material, and often songs were recorded by a number of artists until the best version was determined. And Gordy had a rule for songwriting at Motown. Capture the audience attention within the first 10 seconds of the song, or scrap it and start over. Every song had to pass a company vote before being released. Weekly quality assurance meetings were held in which Motown staff would listen for the formula that Gordy advised would make a hit. These meetings helped maintain the Motown standard. Gordy's unorthodox methods proved to be effective. Motown successfully brought black talent to the forefront of American culture in the 60s. Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Gladys Knight, Lionel Richie, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and The Temptations are just a few of the world's biggest stars that began their careers at Motown. By the 60s, the groundbreaking record label had acquired a net worth of $61 million and had nearly 80 top 10 Billboard Hot 100 records. But as time went on, Motown artists began comparing contracts, discussing royalty payments, and figured that they might not be getting paid their worth. A standard Motown contract paid an artist 2.7% in royalties. Once split amongst group members, this payment was little more than small change. And the royalties from a hit song could be used to offset any outstanding debt owed to the label if the artist hadn't earned a profit. Although considerably low, these numbers were pretty standard in contracts for new artists during that time. The only difference is that Motown contracts require artists to foot the bill for any costs incurred during their career. Fees related to recording sessions, regardless of whether one of the many recorded versions of a song was actually released or not, charm school, dance lessons, and any other obligatory measures Gordy took to ensure Motown's success were to be paid back to Motown before the artist could turn a profit. With its executives continuously profiting from the artist with required in-house management and publishing contracts, this is where the system seems a bit exploitative. But of course, when you're given tens of thousands of dollars in advance payments, the deal seems pretty sweet. Abdul Duke Fakir, one of Motown's top-selling groups, the Four Tops, told Vanity Fair in 2008, "First thing I did after I hit Baby I Need Your Lovin', I went to Berry for the advance because my mama was working as a domestic, and I said I need an advance really bad. Berry said, what do you need? What for? I said, I want to buy my mom a house, she needs it bad. He said, how much do you think you need? I said, oh, about $10,000. He said, well, here's $15,000. That was the happiest weekend of my life. Bought my mom that house, bought me a Cadillac, powder blue and white. But most of Motown's early signees didn't fully understand or even read their contracts. They didn't realize that the large sums of money they received up front were essentially a loan and would be paid back from the profits of their record sales, touring, merchandise, and publishing. By 1967, several Motown producers were well aware that the real money in music was not in performance fees, but in publishing rights, which of course was owned by Berry Gordy through his publishing subsidiary, Jobet Music Incorporated. In 2008, Gordy would seemingly refute claims that him holding multiple job titles were a conflict of interest. People used to attack me and say it was a conflict of interest. I was the manager, I was the record company, I was the publisher, and I would say yes, of course, conflict of interest. But it's in their favor, you stupid fuck. Yet, many of the producers and musicians who were responsible for the hits that generated all this money for Motown were feeling undervalued and, more importantly, underpaid. This would lead to multiple lawsuits against Berry Gordy, which resulted in some of the company's biggest names exiting the label. In 1967, the Hall of Fame songwriting and production team that were responsible for countless Motown hits, Holland Dozier Holland, also called HDH, left the label over royalty payment disagreements with Berry Gordy. Upon learning that the trio was attempting to exit the label a year before their contract was up, he sued the company for $4 million. HDH countersued for $22 million, and one of the most notable disputes in pop culture, lawsuits and countersuits went on for more than 30 years before they ended in 2004. In 1969, Martha Reeves of Martha and the Vandellas, known for their hit song Dancing in the Street, asked Gordy to see a precise accounting of her finances for the 7 years she had been signed to Motown. In the book Motown by Gerald Posner, she cites, "Here I was performing at big-name establishments and having racked up several $1 million for the company selling our records. Although I was an international star, I was shocked to find that I was far from rich." Reeves would go on to sue Berry Gordy multiple times, settling in one dispute for unpaid royalties for an undisclosed amount in the singer's favor. Some might say that Gordy's business model is the earliest version of what we call today a 360 deal. The goal in these types of contracts is to ensure that the label recoups what they spent on breaking a new artist and launching their career. With Berry Gordy taking most of the financial risk, he would also gain the most from each hit record. Shelley Berger, a manager for the Supremes, would describe Gordy's business practices such as keeping artists' money in an escrow account, protective and not suspicious. In the book, Detroit '67, The Year That Changed Soul, said, "Not one artist at Motown had a tax problem during those years. Their taxes were always paid and correctly. Mr. Gordy knew firsthand how easy it was for black artists to be taken advantage of, left naked and in the cold. People talk about being ripped off at Motown. They don't know what they're talking about. He was preventing them from being ripped off. They didn't realize how much money he was saving them. He had two accountants who were very, very conservative, the same people who were handling his own money. And all those acts were making money hand over fist because of that. So I don't want to hear that Berry Gordy ripped off his artists. That's just pure bullshit." In 1975, the Jackson 5 left Motown in favor of a more lucrative contract with Epic Records. The group saw a jump from 2.8% in royalties to 20%. However, as part of their contract with Motown, Berry Gordy owned the band's name, which is why after their departure, they became the Jacksons. At a press conference, a reporter asked the Jackson family why they had decided to leave Motown. "We left Motown because we look forward to selling a lot of albums," Tito Jackson answered. "Motown sells a lot of singles. Epic sells a lot of albums," he added. A reporter asked Mr. Jackson how the move would affect the Jacksons' relationship with Berry Gordy, to which he responded, "You take it as it comes. We tried to renegotiate with Motown," Jackie said, "but the figures were just Mickey Mouse." Perhaps one of the biggest stories of this content from a Motown artist came from one of the writers of his very first hit single, ironically called Money, That's What I Want. In 2010, Hall of Fame songwriter Barrett Strong learned that his name had been removed from the copyright registration for the classic record 3 years after its 1959 release. It was restored in 1987 when the copyright was renewed, then removed again the next year, with his name literally crossed out. Strong, who has often talked about coming up with the song's unmistakable piano riff, has been unable to resolve the matter due to a provision of copyright law that says you must contest any amend copyright registration within 3 years. He says that he would have done so if only he had known of the occurrence. Being that Barrett is not credited as a writer for the legendary song, he is unable to share in the lucrative royalties from the song's use. Over the years, Money has generated millions of dollars in publishing royalties. It was recorded by both the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and has been widely used in films and advertisements. Strong told the New York Times in 2013 that he believes his name was removed because he repeatedly asserted his rights as a writer directly in conversations with Mr. Gordy when Money became a hit. I wasn't getting any statements, so I started asking not too long after the record came out. He recalled, "You couldn't ask too many questions back then because they'll say, you're being a bad boy, you're getting smart." But I kept inquiring and Mr. Gordy told me, "Don't worry about the statements and things. You'll make your money on the road." On the road to what? Gordy's lawyers later disputed claims that Barrett had part in writing the song, stating that Strong's name was only included because of the clerical error. Barrett Strong, who passed away in January of 2023, told the New York Times, "Songs outlive people. The real reason Motown worked was the publishing. The record was just a vehicle to get the songs out there to the public. The real money is in the publishing, and if you have publishing, they hang on to it. That's what it's all about. If you give it away, you're giving away your life, your legacy. Once you're gone, those songs will still be playing." Conflict of interest, creative control, royalty disputes, and of course, addiction, lovers' quarrels, and Motown's move from Detroit to Los Angeles all contributed to its decline in the late 70s. The question is, were Motown artists ripped off, or was their profit so low after their debts were paid that they could only assume they had been stolen from? Gordy once said, "When you're a star or just living like one, you tend to forget about those advances through the year that let you live that way. But at royalty time, when you see the money you already spent reflected in the size of the check, it's understandably disappointing. But no one's been cheated." The truth is, Berry Gordy didn't invent the exploitation of musicians. It's a practice that's gone on long before him and has continued after his reign. But it's an indication that maybe the music industry could use some readjusting. Anyone who provides lasting cultural impact deserves the utmost respect, and at the very least, they deserve to be paid their worth. Stay up to date with the latest news and comedy by subscribing here to our YouTube channel. Follow Hype Plus across all social media and look out for original content on our new streaming service. For Hype Plus News, I'm Terrence Sims.